And greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, and loving life on this 4th of July, 2025. Want to come talk to you today about resident presumption and the driver's license. Now, most of you that know me know from my last case almost 10 years ago, 9 years ago, the traffic situation, getting pulled over with private property plates. And this is because I was on information that told me that there's something wrong with the way this stuff is being administrated, operated, managed, everything like that. There was something wrong. There's something wrong, folks. And when I started doing my research, and there's a lot of it, I come across the concept of this societal agreement, this social compact that lays the presumption that you're part of society through its uses. And one of those uses is language. The problem with language and its use is that it has a lot of words that are used in different ways throughout different venues. And so when we think about the term resident, I want everybody to understand that that is the presumption. It is the presumption that you are a resident by definition. And so we have to break that presumption. So these codes will have things for rebuttable presumptions. So let's take a look. And while we get started, I want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There's a PayPal link right there for anybody who wants to share some love. Every little bit is appreciated. So go ahead and hit that. Make sure you use friends and family. All is appreciated. And what we're looking at here is motor vehicles and the law of the road. Now, this is the Iowa State Code. And let me blow this up so everybody can see this better. And what we're going to do, in your codes, every time you get to a section, the beginning of the section is going to have its context or contents, and then it's going to have a definition section. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the definition section here, and let's scroll down. Okay, so right after the contents that we read here, all these different contexts, tells you where everything's at: peace officers, authority, quotas, use of unmanned aerial vehicles, and it tells you the section you'll find it in. Okay, so 321.1, definitions of words and phrases. Okay, so let's go down and take a look and peek at a couple of these. Bona fide business address means the current street or highway address of a firm, association, or corporation. Bona fide residence or bona fide address means the current street or address of an individual's residence. There's that term, individual. The bona fide residence of a person with more than one dwelling is the dwelling for which the person claims a homestead tax credit. The bona fide residence of a homeless person is a primary nighttime residence meeting one of the criteria listed in section 48A.2 subsection 3. Okay. So even if you're homeless, it's a primary nighttime residence. So they are limiting it to a residence. Okay. It's a term for a place to dwell. So they're saying residence is synonymous with dwelling in this. Okay. Let's go down. Commercial driver means the operator of a commercial motor vehicle. And what we're going to find out here is this here in the federal code is going to be defined by this. So commercial motor vehicle is going to be defined by motor vehicle. And I'll show you what we're talking about there, because this term right here, commerce, and its definition. So pay attention. Make sure you got your notepad and pen taking notes. Commercial driver's license means commercial driver's license as defined in 49 CFR 383.5. So when they say they don't go by federal law, that is bullshit, because their definitions come from the federal code for uniformity. Okay. Commercial driver's license information system means the national information system established to serve as a clearinghouse for locating information. So just like I spoke on yesterday's video on LexisNexis, it is a information clearinghouse based on the data elements that you give them, so that when you tell them that you are a resident, that is one of the data elements that they go by. Oh, he's a resident of the state of Iowa? Then he's required to get a license. So what is the rebuttable presumption? Commercial motor vehicle means a motor vehicle or combination of vehicles used to transport passengers or property if any of the following apply. And then it goes on to list all these different things that have to apply. So let's take a look at non-resident commercial driver's license. It's still a commercial driver's license, whether you're a resident or non-resident. So what is a resident? Commercial vehicle means a vehicle or combination of vehicles designed principally to transport passengers or property of any kind if any of the following apply. And then it goes and tells you the vehicle or any combination of vehicles has a gross weight or combined gross weight of 10,001 or more pounds. So when you open your driver's side door and you look on the little side there, there's going to be a little sticker on it that's going to tell you the gross weight of that vehicle. If it's not 10,000 pounds, then it was not designed principally to transport passengers or property of any kind, while applying the following weight class. So you have to apply the weight class of 10,001 or more pounds in order to be a commercial motor vehicle in the state of Iowa. And I'm going to tell you, this is concurrent through all 50 states. Okay? It's a national standard. The vehicle or any combination of vehicle has a gross weight rating or gross combination weight rating of 10,001 or more pounds. The vehicle is designed to transport 16 or more persons. So a four-person car is not a commercial vehicle. Okay? It's not weight or person computation viable. It does not have a computation of weight, and it does not have the computation to be able to carry 16 passengers. Okay? Let's go down. I don't think there's much more that we want to talk about here. You guys can look this stuff up in your own states and go through. Like I said, the important part is the definitions. Make sure you understand all the terms they're putting forth. But I don't think I had anything else in here that I wanted to talk to in regards to this. So what we do is we just go down to the bottom of the definitions. Okay. And at the bottom of the definitions, we go to the next section, and it is presumption of residency. See, it's the residency that's the presumption, folks. When you go to courts, they're relying on the presumption. And they do so because everybody gives them that address with the first and last name. Again, like I expressed in yesterday's video with LexisNexis and suppression of the information, everybody uses that address in the national address format and doesn't know the difference and why they shouldn't be using that. You've been indoctrinated into the presumption, the very presumption that everybody claims, I'm a resident. God damn it, I live here. We live in this world, but we are not of this world. So, presumption of residency. For the purposes of this chapter, there is a rebuttable presumption that a natural person is a resident of this state if any of the following elements exist. So, folks, if you are a person that has filed for a homestead tax exemption on property in this state, you are considered a resident. If you are claiming to be a veteran who has filed for a military tax exemption on property in this state, you are presumed to be a resident. The person who is registered to vote in the state is presumed to be a resident. Folks, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, take your kids out of the public education systems now, because the person enrolls a child to be educated in a public elementary or secondary school in this state is presumed to be a resident. The person resides or has continuously remained in the state for a period exceeding 30 days, except for infrequent or brief absences. The term to think about here is in this state. We are in this world, but are not of this world. We are only here temporarily, though it be for longer days than 30, we are not in this state. The person has accepted employment or engages in any trade, profession, or occupation within this state, except as provided in section 321.55. And it will tell you. For purposes of issuing a commercial learner's permit and commercial driver's license under this chapter, there is a rebuttable presumption that a natural person is a resident of this state if all of the following conditions exist. The person is enrolled in a commercial driver's license training program administered by an Iowa-based motor carrier or its subsidiary designated by the department as a third-party tester. The person is in the process of applying for a commercial learner's permit for the purpose of completing the training program. The person is residing in this state. Notice it's the person, not yourself. The person is residing in this state for the duration of the training program. That's that record I was telling you about. It's not you. It's not yourself. The individual's name and number identify the record. So if you give a name and a social security number, you're identifying the social security record. If you're giving a name and address, you're identifying the residential record. If you're giving a name and driver's license, you're identifying the driving record. Okay. This subsection shall not apply if such application results in non-compliance with 49 CFR Part 384. Tells us here what a resident does not include. It does not include a person who is attending a college or university in this state if the person has a domicile in another state and has a valid driver's license issued by the state of domicile, because then they would be a resident of the other state. And therefore, that breaks the presumption that they would be a resident in this state. While it still remains a presumption that if you're not a college student with a valid driver's license from another state of domicile, then you would be presumed to be a resident in this state. Just like all the other conditions above where you send your kids to school, that's a presumption that you're a resident then. This here is the exceptions to the residency. And it says a member of the armed forces who is stationed in Iowa, provided that the member's vehicles are properly registered in the member's state of residency. Again, saying that the military member is only stationed in Iowa and they have a residence in another state. Okay. The third one is a corporation, association, partnership, company, firm, or other aggregation of individuals whose principal place of business is located within this state is a resident of this state. A corporation, association, partnership, company, firm, or other aggregation of individuals whose principal place of business is located within this state is a resident of this state. So that partnership, that association of courts, those are residents. Resident does not include either of the following: the person that's college from another state, the person that's in the armed forces in another state, stationed in this state. So we go back to what a resident is association. The person residing. Resident does not include either of the following. And then a corporation, instead of putting resident, it puts resident up here. It says resident does not include any of the following. Notice they didn't have a definition of resident in the definition section. So they did it here by saying resident does not include either of the following. And then instead of putting resident in the definitions, they put it down here and says a corporation, association, partnership, company, firm, or other aggregation of individuals whose principal place of business is located within this state is a resident of this state. So they could have put it up in the definition section as part of the definitions and said resident. A corporation, association, partnership, firm, company, or other aggregation of individuals whose principal place of business is located within this state. Okay? So you have to understand that even though they didn't put it in the definition section, there is a definition and it's right here. Learn how to read. Okay? So let's take a look at the next one. This is the one, 321.53. And it says a non-resident owner, except as provided in section 321.54 and 321.55 of a private passenger motor vehicle not operated for hire, may operate or permit the operation of such vehicle within the state without registering such vehicle in or paying any fees to this state, subject to the condition that such vehicle at all times when operated in this state is duly registered in and displays upon it a valid registration plate or plates issued for such vehicle in the place of residence of such owner. So if you're not a resident, and you own the vehicle, and that's what happens right there. You don't own that vehicle according to the record. The record shows that the state owns the vehicle and issued a certificate of title to yourself, assigning it as a fleet vehicle, a combination vehicle for conducting business on behalf of the state, a trade or business, the performance of the functions of public office. It says a non-resident who leases a vehicle from a resident owner shall not be considered a non-resident owner of such vehicle for the purposes of exemption under this section. A non-resident who leases a vehicle from a resident owner shall not be considered a non-resident owner of such vehicle for the purpose of exemption. In other words, you don't own that vehicle if you're a non-resident and leasing it from somebody else. That's the presumption when you buy that vehicle and you put down that address. Oh, well, this is a fleet vehicle and you're buying it as a resident, a person employed in the performance of the function of public office known as trade or business. I've also spoken about this at the federal level in 26 U.S.C. 7701 subsection H as it relates to the motor vehicle operator's lease, where it says that you have to give a handwritten statement of your intent to use the motor vehicle so pledged as security item in the lease at least 50% of its use for the performance of your trade or business. And that trade or business is defined as the functions of public office. So the resident is a presumption of public office. Okay. Let's go on and see what it says. It says, this section shall be operative to the extent that under the laws of a foreign country, state, territory, or federal district of such non-resident owners' residence like exemptions and privileges are granted to vehicles registered under the laws. and owned by residents of this state. Residents. Such non-resident owners, residents likes exemptions and privileges are granted. See, if you're not a resident, then what is the exception and privilege? See, there's no exception or privilege that can be granted if there's an exception, not an exemption, an exception. And the exception is that the resident is a rebuttable term. Okay. Granted to vehicles registered under the laws and owned by residents. So if you're not a resident, then you don't have to register it under the state laws. Because again, you're not performing the functions of public office, and you have the right to private contract, and you can lease that automobile out to your friend in private and not have a fucking thing done about it pursuant to the law. However, that's not the way they read the law, so I'm not going to tell you to do that because they will pull you over. What I'm telling you to do is don't believe me, don't believe the neighbor, don't believe the government. For crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know, so that when they do pull you over, you can make the proper rebuttal. I hope I'm making good sense to everybody. That was both the definition of what a resident is not and then what a resident is. I'll go back and read that real quick just to show you. Here it says a resident does not include either of the following. So there's two things that it is not. And then it follows up. And instead of telling you resident, like it would in a definition section and having resident at the front, and then say resident means a corporation, association, partnership, company, firm, or other aggregation of individuals whose principal place of business is located within the state. See, that's what many people don't get. I'll be right back, folks.
That's fine.
Okay. Where were we? So, the presumption that you're a resident is a presumption that you have a principal place of business to perform the functions of public office. Okay. So, let's take a look at the next one. I want everybody to take a look at this. This is titled Registration Reciprocity. In other words, quid pro quo. If you want me to register, then I think it's equally considerable that you should register. Okay? That's bringing in that consanguinity of like kind. If you want me to perform the functions of public office, you have to have me take an oath and then properly license me. Otherwise, I can't have that license because I must first perform the functions of public office, which means I have to first take an oath to such performance. The terms combination or combination of vehicles, gross weight, highway, motor vehicle, non-resident, owner, person, semi-trailer, trailer, truck, tractor, and vehicle mean as defined in section 321.1 that we just read, those definitions. Additional definitions. As used in this chapter, unless the context otherwise requires, the following terms have the following meaning as provided in the International Registration Plan, or the meaning ascribed in International Registration Plan as it may exist at the time of its applicability to the provisions of this chapter. Applicant means a person in whose name an application is filed for registration under the plan. Applicant means a person in whose name. See, you are not the person. The authorized representative giving an unambiguous signature on the instrument for the person named in the instrument is therefore not liable on the instrument for the person named in the instrument. You are not the person. Apportionable fee means any periodic recurring fee or tax required for registering vehicles, such as registration license or weight fees. So apportionable is like that handwritten statement that you're using the motor vehicle at least 50% of its use. So when you go to the records and you see that you're using at least 50% of the use, even though you're only using it 50% of the time, so your pay is apportioned to the 50%. Whereas the next guy that might be using it 75% of the time for business would get a 75% apportionment. Whereas the guy that uses it 100% of the time for performance of functions of public office gets a 100% apportionable fee. Understand how the math works. Understand what the words are saying. Let's see here. Audit means the physical examination of a registrant's operational records, including source documents. You know, like the birth certificate. To verify the distances reported in the registrant's application for apportioned registration and the accuracy of the registrant's record-keeping system for its fleet. See, that's that combination of vehicles. If you have two cars, okay, pay attention, folks, apportionment. If you've got two cars, one way, let's make it three cars. Let's make it three cars so it's math equatable. You got three cars. Each of the cars weighs approximately 3,334 pounds. That's going to make your 10,000 1 pound or more. See, it's a combination of vehicles with that gross weight. So now you have a fleet of vehicles. Mom owns a car, dad owns a car. Heaven forbid the son graduated, now he's got a car too. Goodness gracious, they're building a business. They're all claiming residence. Boy, look at that fleet go. Come on, folks. To verify the distances reported in the registrant's application for apportioned registration and the accuracy of the registrant's record keeping. I'm telling you, folks, if you are not accurate and you keep making that presumption, your record is not accurate. That's why they get away with keep pulling you into courts and fucking you up. Ever heard of this one? I don't know if Healing is still out there. I know he stopped in. If you're there, have you ever heard of this one? Base jurisdiction means the member jurisdiction. I haven't heard of either one of those until I came across this in the Iowa Code. Selected in accordance with the plan. See, you're selected. Who selected you? Base jurisdiction means the member jurisdiction selected in accordance with the plan to which an applicant applies for apportioned registration under the plan, or the member jurisdiction that issues apportioned registration to a registrant under the plan. So it's the federal that issues the apportionment, and it's the state that's a member. And now the base jurisdiction is the state that issues the apportioned registration to an applicant in that state. So let's take a look at the federal code. Remember that federal code? It told us 49 CFR 383.5. Commercial driver's license standards, requirements, and penalties. And again, this is definitions. We're go down here to commerce. Remember when I was talking in the Iowa code there, they said travel. They converted traffic to travel. They used traffic and travel in the same sense, just like they used residence and dwelling. So it synonymizes dwelling with residence. This is doing the same thing. Commerce means any trade, traffic, or transportation within the jurisdiction of the United States between a place in a state and a place outside of such state, including a place outside of the United States. Or commerce means traffic, trade, traffic, and transportation in the United States that affects any trade, traffic, and transportation described in paragraph 1 of this definition, which is of the United States and a place in a state and a place outside of such state, including a place outside of the United States. Commercial driver's license means a license issued to an individual by a state or other jurisdiction of domicile. Notice they didn't use residence, but it's synonymous. In accordance with the standards contained in this part, which authorizes the individual to operate a class of commercial motor vehicle. Here's that commercial driver's license information system. CDLIS means the CDLIS established by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. What is a federal motor carrier? Are you a common carrier? Are you required to have insurance? Is that why you're a common carrier of that insurance and registration for that licensee? Guess what? If you read the 2022 Postal Service Reform Act, you will find out that it's 90% about insurance through Medicaid and Medicare. Are you a common carrier? Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Don't you have to present a Social Security card and a birth certificate to get that goddamn fucking driver's license? Are you paying attention? Commercial motor vehicle means a motor vehicle or a combination of motor vehicles, because if you're using 3 cars that don't weigh 10,001 pounds or more by themselves, you can pull them over collectively. Or you can know that they're a part of a fleet, as it's presumed, because you're using a resident. And so is mom. You know, dad, you're using that resident. You got a car. Mom, married to dad, has a car, and she's saying she's a resident. And then, of course, they both have children. Let's say 3 of them. 2 of them have already graduated high school. One's in college in the state in which he resides, and the other one is off to the military. Every vehicle they have registered is part of that fleet vehicle system. system of records, all connected. Combination vehicle, having a gross combination weight rating, a gross combination weight of 11,794 kilograms or more, 26,001 pounds or more, whichever is greater, inclusive of towed units. This is talking about them semi-trucks. Heavy straight vehicle, having a gross vehicle weight rating or gross vehicle weight of 11,000, Small vehicle group, Group C, that does not meet Group A or B requirements, but that either is designated to transport 16 or more passengers, including the driver, is of any size and is used in the transportation of hazardous materials as defined in this section. Goodness gracious, don't every last one of you transport that hazardous material known as gasoline so that you can keep going the next mile? Are you actually in the act of transportation, though? That's why these definitions are so damn important. If commerce means trade, traffic, or transportation, then in the transportation from point A to point B, you are actually committing commercial transactions. If you are not doing such things, then you are not you are not in transportation. Nor are you traveling. Nor are you traveling. Like I showed you in Iowa code, they conflate traffic as travel. They synonymize them. So I'm trying to urge people to understand the definitions by looking them up. And I'm going to tell you here that you are in transition from point A to point B and you have a freedom of transit. Don't believe me. Don't believe the neighbors. Don't believe the government. For crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know, because you are in transition. Disqualification means any of the following three actions: the suspension, revocation, or cancellation. So once they disqualify me from the driver's license, there still remains the presumption of residence that everybody keeps applying to everything else. This is what I'm trying to tell you, people. You have to stop the presumption of residence by knowing it. Driver applicant means an individual who applies to a state or other jurisdiction to obtain, transfer, upgrade, or renew a CDL or to obtain or renew a CLP. Driver's license means a license issued by a state or other jurisdiction to an individual which authorizes the individual to operate a motor vehicle on the highway. Okay. Driver from 49 CFR 390.5T says driver means any person who operates. So operating and driving are the identical things. They are synonymous again. They define each other. Operate from 49 CFR 396.6 or 396.9. No motor carrier or intermodal equipment provider shall require or permit any person to operate, nor shall any person operate any motor vehicle or intermodal equipment declared and marked out of service, until all repairs required by the out of service notice have been satisfactorily completed. The term operate, it's not a word. Here it's used as a term. Terms and conditions of contract. The term operate, as used in this section, shall include towing the vehicle or intermodal equipment, Now, that's a limitation because it uses this little word here, include. And when we look at include, we go to the statute interpretation principles. And what it says is expressio unos, God damn it, expressio unius est exclusio alterius. In other words, this principle states that when a statute specifically mentions certain things, it is presumed that other things are excluded. It translates to the expression of one thing excludes the other. For example, if a law lists specific types of licenses that are required to carry or required for certain activities, it suggests that other types of licenses are not required. So here what we're looking at is it says the term operate, as used in this section, shall include towing the vehicle or intermodal equipment. So it does not include anything else. So we're talking about towing and not actually getting behind the wheel and transitioning oneself from point A to point B. Operate is for out of services that may be towed, and that is called operation. A vehicle, except that vehicles or intermodal equipment marked out of service may be towed away by means of a vehicle using a crane or hoist. A vehicle combination consisting of an emergency towing vehicle and an out-of-service vehicle shall not be operated unless such combination meets the performance requirements of this subchapter, except for those conditions noted on the driver vehicle examination report. I hope you guys are catching on to this, because if they're saying that it only applies to a towing of the vehicle or intermodal equipment, and that's to operate, okay? And then when we go back to driver, it says driver means any person who operates. So a driver is one that's operating a tow vehicle, God damn it. Let's take a look at the next one. Motor vehicle, again, from 49 CFR 390.5T. Motor vehicle means any vehicle, machine, tractor, trailer, or semi-trailer propelled or drawn by mechanical power and used upon the highways in the transportation of passengers and or property or any combination thereof determined by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. But does not include any vehicle, locomotive, or car operated exclusively on rail or rails or a trolley bus operated. Again, they're saying operated now. Or a trolley bus operated by electric power, derived from a fixed overhead wire, furnishing local passenger transportation similar to street railway service. Furnishing local passenger transportation. It has to be commercial. Commerce means trade, traffic, or transportation. So anytime you see the trade, traffic, or transportation being used in these other terms, you have to understand they're still talking about commercial motor vehicle, even though they only say motor vehicle. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. This is 49 U.S. Code 31301 definitions. And as we showed you in the 49 CFR 383.5 definitions, commerce means any trade, traffic, or transportation within the United States. This is the Code of Federal Regulations. This is the enforcement for the definitions set out in the U.S. Code, the codification. So we have 49 U.S. Code 31301 definitions, wherein we find commerce means trade, traffic, and transportation in the jurisdiction of the United States between a place in a state and a place outside of the state, including a place outside of the United States. Same damn thing that we just saw in the Code of Federal Regulations in the United States that affects trade, traffic, and transportation described in Clause A of this clause. So let's take a look at the qualifications of drivers and longer combination vehicle driver instructors. Part 391. General. Scope of the rules in this part. Additional qualifications, duties of carrier drivers. Carrier drivers. Now you notice how they got it hyphenated. Right? They got a hyphen in there. Now they're connecting carrier with drivers. What did I just get done telling you about the 2022 Postal Service Reform Act? Aren't they the common carrier? Aren't they the carrier? The rules in this part establish minimum qualification for persons who drive commercial motor vehicles as for or on behalf of motor carriers. So if you are not operating a motor carrier outfit yourself, and they are saying a commercial motor vehicle, then you are in fact presumed as conducting for or on behalf of motor carriers. You're presumed to be in a contract somewhere, and you're not doing it for yourself. Oh, it's just my car. I'm just going to the store to get groceries. But the presumption is that it's on behalf of a motor carrier. That's what the record reflects. So when they ask you for your driver's license, you hand it over to them. Guess what? You're in custody of the very evidence that they need to convict you. Look at this dummy saying he's a resident. And he ain't. Liar. This guy ain't no public official. This guy ain't performing the fuck. This guy's wearing a fucking wife beater and tatted up and cut out shorts and sandals. This guy ain't no public official. Come on. An individual who meets the definition of both a motor carrier and a driver employed by that motor carrier must comply with both the rules in this part that apply to motor carriers and the rules in this part that apply to drivers. Huh? Are you guys seeing this? Okay, let's go back. An individual who meets the definition of both a motor carrier, and they give you a blue highline item that you can click on to get to the definition of motor carrier. And there's no definition. You go to driver, it's going to give you that other driver one. Driver means any person who operates any commercial motor vehicle, and that is from 49 CFR 390.5T. So what's a motor carrier? We don't know what motor carrier is. See how they conflate drivers, and here's of carrier drivers? What's a motor carrier? Don't have a definition for it. And then they connect it with this little hyphen to drivers. Now it's a carrier driver. General exceptions, farm custom operation. See, the agriculture does not fall under trade, traffic, or transportation in your state codes. It is a separate jurisdiction, and this is why the Amish can go around with their buggies and everything and have just the farm placard on there. Same with your tractors. They're not required to have plates. They're not under the licensing laws. Agriculture is not required to have a carrier license. What was the other one? Let's go back. 383. No, we want to go back to this one. There we go. So let's go back to the 49 U.S. Code 31301. That's definitions, right? We read that one. We got commercial driver's license. Commercial motor vehicle means a motor vehicle used in commerce. So when they say motor vehicle, again, it's in transportation, used in commerce. That has a gross weight. Okay. Has a gross vehicle weight rating or gross vehicle weight of at least 26,001 pounds, whichever is greater, or a lesser gross vehicle weight rating or gross vehicle weight the Secretary of Transportation prescribes by regulation, but not less than a gross vehicle weight of rating of 10,001 pounds. This is the one they use throughout the states. Okay. But your car doesn't weigh that much. Look at the door on your car and see what that sticker says. I guarantee you it's only going to be about 4,400 pounds. So you have to have at least 3 cars to have an aggregate combination weight of 10,001 pounds to be considered fleet motor vehicles. It is designed to transport at least 16 passengers. So 3 cars, 5, 6 people a car. Yeah, you can get 16 passengers in 3, 4 cars. It's used to transport material. What kind of material? Found by the Secretary to be hazardous. Gasoline in that tank. Driver's license means a license issued by a state to an individual, authorizing the individual to operate a motor vehicle on highways. Here we go. Employee means an operator of a commercial motor vehicle, including an independent contractor when operating a commercial motor vehicle, who is employed by an employer. Employer means a person. And then it uses that adjustum generis, that exclusio thing. It's including the United States government, a state or political subdivision of the state. That's a political employee for the performance of the functions of public office. Again, it says the same thing in different words. Okay? That owns or leases a commercial motor vehicle or assigns employees to operate a commercial motor vehicle. Foreign commercial driver would still be a commercial driver. Okay? Short set of definitions there. Let's look at the next one. Next one is commercial driver's license equipment. Notification requirements. An individual operating a commercial motor vehicle having a driver's license issued by a state and violating a state or local law on motor vehicle traffic control shall notify the individual's employer of the violation. An individual operating a commercial motor vehicle having a driver's license issued by a state and violating a state or local law on motor vehicle traffic control shall notify the individual's employer of the violation. Where do the police come in to do this. This is an individual operating the motor vehicle, not somebody else outside of the vehicle. It says shall notify the individual's employer of the violation. That's saying you, the one driving the goddamn vehicle, is supposed to do the reporting. Okay? If the violation occurred in a state other than the issuing state, the individual also shall notify a state official designated by the issuing state. So again, it's not the police officer, it's the individual. The notification is required by this subsection shall be made not later than 30 days after the date the individual is found to have committed the violation. Sounds like the officer is pulling you over and giving that notice himself. See, this is what I keep telling people. They're nothing but tattletales. They're supposed to be telling on each other. I'm not involved in your commerce. Quit fucking with me. Ain't none of your business. Revocations, suspensions, and cancellations. An employee who has a driver's license revoked, suspended, or canceled by a state who loses the right to operate a commercial motor vehicle in a state for any period, or who is disqualified from operating a commercial motor vehicle for any period, shall notify the employee's employer. An employee who has it revoked shall notify the employees. And then you're supposed to be telling on yourself. You're supposed to tell them, hey, I got revoked, suspended, or canceled. I can't drive for you anymore. You're a motor carrier needing my services to drive. I've been suspended. I got to tell you, I can't do this anymore. They're gonna pull me over and give you a violation for knowingly allowing me to violate the code. You guys understand? If you don't learn how to read and do the research, you won't see this stuff. And I keep telling you, don't believe me, don't believe the neighbor, don't believe the government for crying out, or don't believe the government, and don't believe your mother for crying out loud. Do your research. It's the only way I found it. Otherwise, I'd still be sitting here running my mouth like everybody else. I'm a resident. Happy 4th of July. Look, I just blew 4 of my fingers off. That's how stupid you sound. Because in reality, you're not a resident. A resident implies that you're a federal, state, or municipal officer or employee. Officer or agent. So let's look at the next one. Employer responsibilities. An employer may not allow an employee to operate a commercial motor vehicle in the United States during a period that employer knows or should reasonably know that the employee has a driver's license revoked, suspended, or canceled. So when you get that driver's license, what you're doing is you're applying to drive, and the one you're applying from is the employer. And now you're applying to drive under the term trade or business, which is the performance of the functions of public office. And if you haven't taken an oath after being ascribed to that office pursuant to a selection of the people who elected you, then you ain't got no business even applying for a driver license. I got a buddy out there who's got more than one driver's license, and he loves it. He thinks it's cool. Has more than one driver license. Except is allowed under 31302 of this title. 31302. 31302. Commerce. And he thinks it allows him to travel privately. No, you've got multiple licenses in multiple states under 49 U.S. Code 31302, commercial driver's license. Those aren't private transit permits. Those are commercial driver's licenses. All these gurus out there trying to explain to everybody how you can do this and how you can do that, and ain't not a one of them fucking reading the goddamn thing. Pathetic. Let's look at the next one. General driver fitness testing and training. Alcohol and controlled substances testing. National Clearinghouse for controlled substance and alcohol test results of commercial motor vehicle operators. So within the National Clearinghouse of Data Elements under LexisNexis, like I spoke of yesterday, an information system. All they're doing is keeping track of everything on you. And you help them do it. You're the ones reporting on yourself. You're the one actually telling on yourself. Right? Minimum training requirements for operators of longer combination vehicles. Commercial driver's license. After consultation with states, the Secretary of Transportation shall prescribe regulations on minimum uniform standards for the issuance of commercial driver's licenses and learner's permits by the states, and for information to be contained on each of the licenses and permits. The standards shall require at a minimum that an individual issued a commercial driver's license pass written and driving tests for the operation of commercial motor vehicle that comply with the minimum standards prescribed by the Secretary under Section 31.305. Pass written and driving tests. Again, the commercial motor vehicle operator's lease demands a handwritten statement of intent to perform trade or business upon at least 50% of the use of the motor vehicle that has been pledged as security in the lease transaction as owned by the state and held as security so that you can drive for the state. And if you fuck up, they will take their property back and suspend your license, leave you walking alongside the road. Because you bought into a scheme that said you got to register that vehicle with the state. Sorry, the state has no interest. The state can't have any interest. The state doesn't have any interest because I'm not performing the function of the public office. So unless that lease for demanding certification, certificate of title, doesn't have that handwritten statement of my intent, I'm going to tell you to fuck off. You ain't my daddy. See what we got here. We saw Bad Barney No Bullet, Joseph R. Greetings everybody. The fallen slaves us all. Bear Jew, Ja Healing Kinetic. We got Lex Animata was here. Mary Bagnasha, Dean Phillips, The Tribe. Greetings everybody. The Powdered Dusty. Yes. Greetings. Jeeps. My dog is a sob stick. You don't take commands. I gotta show that to the world. Jeeps is over here. One of my greatest haters. Jeeps is over here watching. Appreciate it. We got the Arctic Timber Wolf. Again, this is, yes, resident implies federal, state, municipal employee. 19 CFR, let me pull it up. 19 U.S. Code 81.0. And I'll read that to everybody while we're here so that everybody gets the lowdown on it. 19 U.S. Code 81.0, residents of the zone. And we're talking about that foreign trade zone as it relates to trade and business. performance of functions of public office. And it says, persons allowed to reside in the zone. So if you're running around claiming that you're the resident, I'm telling you, by their definition, you are not a resident of the zone. Because a resident of the zone is no person shall be allowed to reside in the zone. And the zone is foreign trade zone, except federal, state, or municipal officers or agents whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board. And the board is the established to carry out the provisions of this chapter. The board shall consist of the Secretary of Commerce, who shall be the chairman and executive officer of the board, and the Secretary of the Treasury. Telling you again, it's all about commerce. And again, the Bureau of Vital Statistics, you know, the enumeration at birth, is regulated by the Department of Commerce itself. Please, folks, pay attention. Again, don't believe me. Don't believe the neighbor. Don't believe the government. For crying out loud. Don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. That's all I've got for today. I want to thank everybody for joining me. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe. Hit that PayPal link down there. Show some love. Every little bit counts. 5, 10, 15, 20 bucks, all is appreciated. And you guys know me. I love you. But I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you and have a good day. Bye now.